Hey guys, this is Aaron. Before we start today's episode, I'd just like to say that we've created a Patreon for Milsurp World. This will go towards paying our subscription host for the podcast and will prevent the podcast from being deleted after 90 days so that people can still continue to enjoy the podcast through their favorite app. It's currently at $12 a month to fund the subscription host, and whatever you guys want to donate, that's fine with us. We don't have a limit or anything like that. If you don't want to donate, that's perfectly fine too. You can always find the podcasts on Danny's channel, North Florida Gun Guy, on YouTube. I will link in the description of the podcast Patreon's website, and you can go there and donate. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Milsurp World, the podcast about military surplus. I'm your host, Aaron, and I'm joined today by Danny. Say hi, Danny.
Hey, you guys.
Thanks, Danny. Today's topic, we're going to be discussing the current Milsurp market and guns to look for in 2019 and guns that we're going to be looking for in 2019. Isn't that right, Danny?
Ed Zachary. We are going to be talking about guns in this episode. Big surprise, but specifically with 2019 coming up, guns that we think that you guys know about.
Yeah. All right. Well, Danny's been out and about a lot here recently, going to shows and such. So we're just going to see what he's been noticing out on the beat, I guess.
Yeah, so going out, and also just, I'm constantly like paying attention to gun broker ads and just a bit of gun popular culture, giving me an idea of what I think. Guns that are catching on, guns that are going to catch on further. Yeah, and guns that I think that people should now, before it's too late.
So what have you been seeing out at the shows and such? Like the prices going up, going down, or are you seeing more and more selection, or what?
I guess this gets into the first sort of gun that I was going to talk about. As far as overall selection, I mean, it's a little hard. It's getting harder to find. The shows, I tend to notice that there's either certain dealers that deal in old guns, and those are really cool, and you sort of look out for them, but their prices tend to be above market. Yeah, Milsurp selection, it definitely seems very sporadic. The times that I see it, like at different vendors, it seems like they just happen to get them. Sometimes it's just like this one vendor will happen to have this one old gun, and that's sort of it. I'll notice that certain vendors, they'll have a whole bunch of guns. And actually, I went to a gun show today, and I noticed this one vendor, he had a whole lot of guns, and they all shared a theme. Like these guns, they were all like predominantly like Mausers, some other gun that served, in the German military, some other rifle. And it's pretty obvious that those all came from a single collection, like sort of like maybe someone passed away, and this was like an estate sale or something. And these guys they bought up the whole gun estate. And those were pretty high. Those guys, there were some pretty special rifles there that they were selling, and the prices are pretty high. And it's, a couple of those guns, I've honestly, there was a G29O there, and I've never seen a G29O before, like in real life. Like I've seen them online and stuff, but seen in real life, and it had a really high price on it too. It does definitely seem to be a bit more of a seller's market right now when it comes to certain rare guns. There's certain rare guns that you're going to have to pay a high price for. There's not going to be very many of them, and you're going to have to sort of fight the other collectors for it, get them to it.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. The rare market is still pretty strong.
Yeah, and then you can go to a gun show and you can see how many 9130s are there. And I was at a show, and there was like, I don't know why, but just about every had a 9130 there. And there was actually pretty good prices. Like I would say like just below current market price, to the fact that, because I've never owned a 9130, I was like, oh, maybe I'll get one. That's actually a pretty decent price nowadays. Like I was at the show for a few hours, and like none of them sold while I was there. So it seems like the rare stuff, like the collectors are really going after, but then the common stuff is not too, the market's not too hot on it. So it does kind of seem a little bit sporadic, and location definitely does play into this as well, because I've been to shows all over the country, and it's I guess there's some guns that are always popular no matter where you are, like German stuff. Some places you can go to it and people don't care about Scandinavian guns, and Scandinavian guns will be there and will be pretty cheap. So like show I went to in Washington State, there was Norwegian and Swedish guns there, and to them, everybody there just wanted U.S. rifles. And so yeah, I guess has something to do with it a little bit. But yeah, the market is kind of tricky, man. Like some definitely appreciating in value a lot, and then other ones are staying pretty stagnant.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to see the stuff that you're just kind of like, oh, it's staying at that price. So when you see everything else jumping up, but some of the stuff just doesn't really have the following, and we'll kind of get into that later on. But like we were talking about before the podcast, there's countries that just don't have like the quote unquote prestige or whatever of being in a major war. They were a neutral country, or people just don't care for the combatants or whatever, and it's just like those firearms are not being appreciated the same way, even though they're probably just as good.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point. Like I think even if they are fairly major combatants, the rifles still aren't very popular. So like Italians, right, the Carcanos and stuff like that, super sought after as much anymore. Or I mean, I don't know if they ever really have been sought after, but it's not in both world wars, and the rifles that they fought in both world wars with aren't popular. So a bit of people's opinions on the rifles go into it as well. But the crazy thing is some neutral guns and Swedish guns go for more than like Japanese and Italian guns. A bit of a I'll have to say, not all Japanese guns are cheap. I've noticed actually going up, like Japanese pistols and stuff like that. Like probably in the last couple of years, man, Nambu's like a couple $100s, I would say. I don't know why. I don't think people are shooting them anymore. They're just getting more and more collectible. And then so there's the cheap, I'm going to say the cheap Arasakas, which are the ones that have like ground mum, and then maybe they don't have 99, they don't have all the accoutrements on them.
Especially the last ditch rifles, especially that you're going to see those too.
And last ditch rifles, those don't tend to demand a really high price. They're pretty common. I don't think people, because those aren't necessarily nice collector guns, shooters, because the ammo is not that available. So I don't think those people really want those. However, now if you find like a Japanese Type 99 or Type 38 with a mum, I know like it's kind of silly, but if it has the mum, the price really does jump, or at least it really goes up significantly just from having a mum. So features will kind of vary whether or not, like it's hard to just say like all Japanese Arasakas are cheap, because them are, but there are some guns, like if a Type 99 has the A sights, the mum, the monopod, the cleaning rod, and the dust cover, like that is that's going to be a pretty high dollar gun. Like that would probably rival a nice matching K98K, like in terms of price, just because of the rarity of those.
Yeah, but that's going to be far and few between compared to the majority of the market.
Yeah, I think I've only seen like a couple Type 99s like that in real life, other than online. You see them online, but yeah, it's really hard to find a good like matching or an Arasaka with all the features. Yeah, and that's what it really is about with the Arasakas, is the features and having them.
Well, before we get too far into guns you to look out for, what are like the tips are still the same that we discussed in our very first episode back in November. You've got to hit the beat. You've got to hit up your gun stores in the area, your pawn shops, any place that sells guns. Go there, check them out once a month, once every other week. Go around, go to the shops, go talk to people. Post on arms list in your local arms list and say you're looking for stuff. You can't just expect stuff to fall into your lap anymore, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like that's just something, I know we've talked about this a few times, but yeah, like you can't expect this stuff just to find it. You can't go to like one gun store or like show like late on the last day or whatever and just be like, man, there's no good stuff. There's no good price stuff or whatever. And you can't, those type of people, they're not going to find the deals, and they're not going to have cool, cheap guns. Yeah, you do have to build the rapport with people. You have to, you have to go to all the shows. You have to go to. Here's a good one we should talk about. Actually, people should start going to estate sales more often, especially with the estate sales at firearms.
Oh yeah, I always suggest that actually, and I discussed this with you before. Is that previously a couple of years ago, I would suggest to people don't go to firearms only auctions. Go to estate sales with with firearms in them, because the people going to an estate sale or estate auction, I should say, all of those people there are not going to be buying guns. They're going to be there to buy other stuff as well as potentially buying a gun. But with a firearms only auction, all of those people there are there to buy firearms, so they're all your competition. And another key thing I think for people when they go to an auction, don't go in expecting to get like the one gun. Don't spend your whole time there expecting to get the one thing. Don't just come in with like an attitude of I'm going to be happy with anything that we can get, and like have an idea of what you're wanting to look for so that you know what the numbers come up, so you know what to look for. But like it's so disappointing and frustrating, and I've had this happen to me before, when you drive like 45 minutes, an hour to go to an auction and then spend 2 hours waiting for it to get to the one item you want, and then the bidding starts at $300 above what you wanted to pay. And that's just so frustrating. So I always say to people, don't go in expecting to win the one item you want. Go in with an open mind and just get something, and you can sell it later if you don't like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess a good start to that would be to do the research, and like you knew probably that it was going to go for, and you knew your price, like your top dollar. So at least you knew that, because you could have gone in and you could have overpaid for it. If you didn't know about the gun and the current market, it overpaid.
Yeah, that's something you always want to look out for, is that you want to, if you're going then and they have the listings and everything like that beforehand, look at what you would be interested in and then decide what you're willing to pay for it. When it gets to that point, be ready to stop, because that's another part I've had to happen to me before, is that I got interested in something and I didn't want to stop, but unfortunately I didn't get stuck with anything. You need to be able to, it's almost like gambling, you need to know when to quit.
Yeah. So I would suggest definitely doing your research before you go into anything like that. Be prepared for the worst case scenario of you leaving there with nothing. Be prepared for that, and then pretty much, if you leave with anything good or cheap or whatever, then it's all a plus. But just low expectations is the key to happiness here. Probably with most of life, but set a low expectation when you go there. Don't expect to be a lot of things. However, there's plenty of times where stuff won't be even listed, and you'll go to this auction thing, there's just a couple guns, and then there might be actually something really cool there.
Yeah, exactly. I've had that happen to me before, and that's how I got my L1A1, the British version of the FAL. It was listed in the auction as a 308 Sporter, and I'm like,
308 Sporter.
Yeah, that's what it says on the side, because that's what Century wrote on the side whenever they imported it.
Like PC code name for
Yeah,
for a scary gun.
It's just a weird thing they wrote on it, but the auction listing didn't understand that, so they just said, okay, it says 308 Sporter rifle on the side, just put that in the listing. And that's how I got an FNFAL for $290, because nobody was there to buy it.
Dude, I shot that.
You did shoot that, and you liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really suggest, I think that previously I would suggest not going to firearms only auctions, but now I'm almost suggesting to go. And I had this discussion with Danny before as well. The firearms only auctions, the selection is so broad and so much, especially with local ones that are not necessarily going to be online or online only ones. You're competing with maybe 50 to 75 people, and you're not competing with the entire country all at once. If you're going to be there, you're going to be there all day, and you're going to be there from like 10 a.m. to like 8 p.m. By the time it gets to 8 p.m., there's going to be like 10 people left, and you could come out with some really great deals. I had a friend of mine go to a local auction here and ended up he bought like 6 guns for less than $20 a piece. They were functional firearms. They weren't Milsurps, but I mean, they were 22 revolvers and some shotguns and stuff like that. But that's six guns for under $20 because nobody wanted them.
Yeah, that's one of those things where you're losing money not buying it.
Yeah, I mean, he bought perfectly functional 22 revolvers that he bought 3 or 4 of them for like $50, and it was just like, why not? If anything, I can sell it for 60 and make a profit on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess to the listener, the point of all this is like, don't just fret and just look at your one gun shop. You have to think outside the box when it comes to where you're going to find your guns. You have to stay active. You have to keep looking, and that's deals. It's how you find the cool stuff.
Yeah, and I would also suggest, even though we're going to talk about stuff we're going to be looking for, don't hesitate if you come across a deal to buy it and keep onto it or potentially sell it for the future. But don't be afraid to buy something that's not on your quote unquote list.
Yeah, that's yeah. You have to pretty much be prepared to buy something, and that can be a little scary if you don't know. And I mean, there's been a time before where I'm walking around a gun show and I see something and I go, "Oh, this could be really something," and I just held it in one hand, one in the other, and I looked it up. Like I Googled it. I got on Gunbroker and deal, and I'm sure I could have set that down and walked away or something, but somebody else could have got it. But prepared to get it
Yeah.
to right then, because you can very easily. There's a lot of gun guys, and everybody has a story of the gun that got away. Like, oh, I thought it would be there, and I walked away, and I was going to go to the ATM, and it was gone when I got back. There's a lot of stories like that. So prepared to jump on the deal when you find it, because somebody else is going to jump on it.
Yeah, don't expect it to be there when you come back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. I mean, that happened to Will. What cool gun was it that he found in a gun shop? And he was like, he left and he thought about it, and he's like, dang it, I should have bought that gun. It was a good price. So he went back like the next day and it was gone.
That happened to his Danish Krag, and then the guy that bought it decided he didn't like it, so he returned it.
Oh, I didn't know that happened with that Danish Krag. Oh man, I want that Krag. I don't know why I want it though. I don't like guns typically with straight bolt handles, but I want that.
Yeah, it's a pretty neat looking thing.
Maybe I'll trade on my US Krag for it.
All right, so you want to get into the things that we think people should look out for?
Okay, yeah. So guns to look for. So these are going to be guns that I'm going to give sort of relevant reasons on why you should look for these guns. So start out with, I'm going to say the guns to look for are French guns. I'm going to blame this on Ian, all right? Ian at Forgotten Weapons, because he is, he says it, he's a Francophile. He loves French guns, and he's very passionate. And I think there really is something kind of cool about French guns. He's getting a lot of people, I think, into these guns because, I mean, he has like over 1 million subscribers now. So when you have a guy with 1 million subscribers and he's posting about these guns constantly and putting information out there that previously, wasn't out there, he's going to really stir up the French gun market. He's going to get a lot of people interested in it. A lot of people are going to collect them just because Ian does and because they're cool and, they want to be like Ian. Some people are just genuinely going to start maybe appreciating French firearm history more and collecting them. So I think that the market is going to go up on those significantly. And so I think it'd be a good bet to keep an eye out on French guns. And if you're getting one, definitely sooner rather than later with these guns.
And I think oh, sorry, you know what you're saying?
Oh, just that I think he's going to keep putting out more videos, and he's got some pretty neat French guns. The longer his videos are out there, the more videos that he makes about them, the more views and the more people that get interested, the higher the price goes. So definitely, if you're interested in French guns, you're going to want to do that.
Yeah, and I think specifically the Berthier models and the Moss 36 models are going to be the ones that are not going to be the super expensive ones right now, because the Lebel, let's face it, is just insane.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point, yeah.
The Moss 4956s are going up.
Yes. Yeah, see, that's going back to the story of the gun that you should have bought. Yeah, there's a 4956 that was like $400, $450 or something like that. I passed on it, but now those are way up there. Are getting up. They're getting up close to like a $1,000 price range.
Yeah, they're getting pretty expensive, and even the Century conversion ones are actually getting up in price too.
Yeah. So probably I should refrain that and not just say French. I mean, sort of. I mean, all French guns I think will go up, like pistols and stuff. But Specifically, yeah, the Moss 36 and the Berthier. I'm still not sure how to pronounce that. Berthier.
Berthier. I'm not doing the
Berties.
correct French pronunciation, I'm sure, but
Oh,
I know that there's a T, so it's Berthier.
all right, the birdies. So you want to go buy the birdies because those are pretty cool. I have a 3-shot birdie Carcano. Why did I say Carcano?
I don't know why you said Carcano.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, it's next to the Carcano on the wall. That's why I said it.
Oh,
I was
okay.
looking at it.
Yeah,
But I have a 3-shot birdie carbine, and it is a really, I didn't expect really like it that much, but it is a light little neat handy carbine. It's a cool little gun. Like I bet it kicks a lot. It's a pretty neat gun. Like I think that there might really be something to especially getting maybe the long rifles, even if you don't like the carbines. There's a lot of varieties of different makers and the different years and models. So there's a bit of collectability there, and they're still pretty cheap right now.
Yeah, and the quality's pretty not too bad typically either. Even though they were used from World War One and World War Two, the quality tends to actually be pretty decent.
Yeah, they're not rough. They seem like pretty well made. They're not like fancy. They're not like really like meticulously polished and whatever. But I mean, they're well made. The fit and finish of them seems good. It seems pretty high up. Like probably not like as high as like a Swiss gun fit and finish. High up there.
But the Swiss guns, they're kind of in their own little world. They're in their own little bubble as far as fit and finish go.
Yeah, they are. They're super well made, man.
Very much so.
I just took this one completely apart and cleaned it. Kind of insane that like anybody would put that much effort into it, into just a standard rifle. I mean, now, okay, I'm gonna go back into this. Not only the Swiss, man, but if you ever like looked at or played with a really nice example, like early war German Mauser, slick as well, man. Those can have a really nice finish, and the parts can be really, yeah, they're hand fit and polished and everything. So guns can be pretty close to like Swiss quality.
Yeah, and I would actually argue it. The next topic on the next one on my list actually was South American Mausers.
Okay.
That fit and finish as well. The fit and finish of the Mausers up until World War One is amazing. It was so high quality that you're not going to find, except with the minor exceptions like the Swiss and the Swedish. Well, the Swedish Mausers for sure, but you're not going to find many exceptions where the fit and finish on those are as high of a quality for the South American Mausers.
Yeah, I just thought about it. Yeah, Swedish Mausers do actually have a really high like quality fit and finish on theirs. Like I would say that Husqvarna Swedish Mausers, the fit and finish is a little bit better than Carl Gustaf and the early Mauser Obendorf made Swedish Mausers.
Yeah, but those are all still pre-World War One, right?
No, not the Huskies, man. Those are actually like World War II production.
Oh, but that country was never in the war, so it was also stayed. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't fully involved.
Technically, they were. Yeah. So I mean, we could really dive into the
I don't
Swedish
think we
thing,
should.
but that the Swedes sort of had this general rule of neutrality, but they got involved in various ways.
But their factories were not bombed is the key thing I think we're talking about.
Yeah, like their factories weren't bombed, but they were still facing some, wartime restrictions. Like they still had food and less raw materials and stuff like that. Just being at during World War II.
Well, to circle back to my point, though, I think you should be on the lookout for South American Mausers. Mauser armed basically every single country in South America. I don't think there's a single South American country that did not use Mausers. They're everywhere. And you can find them in typically 2 calibers, 7mm and 7.65 by 53. And now those are not as popular as they were back in the day, but they are still made, and 7mm is actually still kind of popular as a hunting round. So you can still find those calibers. You're going to have high fit and finish. You're not going to have the reputation that the K98Ks or the Gewehr 98s bring, but you're going to have the Brazilian 1908s, the Peruvian 1909s, and the Chilean 1912s. Those are straight up Gewehr 98 export models. They are the exact same thing as a Gewehr 98, but you can find them for under $400, $500. You're not going to touch a Gewehr 98 for that much.
Pretty much any Mauser, like if it's a European Mauser for that price, it's gonna be pretty junk. Like you get with those South American Mausers that you just named, you have to spend really double on that to get anything from Europe. But you could look at, yeah, like a Chilean 1912. Those are sweet rifles for about the same as a Yugo M48. And it's kind of a weird thing, but these South American Mausers are actual German made Mausers, and they're made to a very high quality. And that time period, like in the early 1900s, before World War One, like those Germans, they made some really nice export rifles.
They sure did. They really did. And then the other advantage I think that South American Mausers hold is that South American countries, specifically Chile, Colombia, and Brazil, converted their rifles to the more common calibers in the 60s and 50s. So Chile converted the 1912s to 7.62 by 51 NATO, and then Brazil converted their rifles to 30-06. So you have another great opportunity because you have the fit and finish quality level of a pre-World War I German Mauser, but then you have a more common cartridge that you can use without having to worry about reloading or anything like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would almost say though, at least the ones in 7mm Mauser, I would still like go for 1 and 7mm Mauser over 2 or 30-06, but I think I would not want 1 in 7.65. I think that's a little too hard, a little bit too pricey right now. But 7mm Mauser is a sweet little round.
It is a really good cartridge. I'm not just saying that because that was the first cartridge I ever had. But anyway, well, we kind of mentioned it actually. You already mentioned it when we were talking about the South Americans. I think the next one we wanted to talk about was the M48.
Yeah. So M48s. For those listening that don't know, M48s it's like an intermediate length action that the Yugoslavs, the communist Yugoslavian government made right after World War II, and they made a few variants. So they made like the M48s, which have all milled parts, and they made the M48A, B, which just means that they just slowly introduced more and more stamped parts instead of milled parts. I've noticed the prices on them aren't really going up. They seem to be pretty steady.
Well, and then now we were talking about fit and finish. The Yugoslavian ones, I think, have a little bit of a hindrance working against them, is that they're not German made; they're Yugoslavian made. So the reputation isn't there as far as German quality. But the advantage that these ones have is that most of them were made and then immediately stored and never used.
Yeah, that's the best thing about M48s is that they're pretty much a brand new Mauser. Like there's not a whole lot of cases of made like recently, not like made, 100 years ago, but made 70 years ago, put into storage, drenched in cosmoline, which really preserved them, just sold right afterwards, just never used, made, put into storage, sold.
And actually, I'm looking at the listing right now, this information right now, Danny. With the exception of approximately 4,000 rifles, there was never a time when the Yugoslav army fielded the M48s.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I don't understand why they did it, except that I know the commies loved making a lot of guns. Like they were really getting ready for something.
They did sell them to Egypt, Syria, Indonesia, Burma, Iraq, Algeria, Chad, and Lebanon as well.
Yeah,
so probably,
M48 does sound like a Chad rifle.
It sounds like something that would have been made and to be sold. But I'm looking at this listing right here. They made over 1 million between all the variants. Actually, it's 1.2 million plus.
Oh, so do you think the Yugos were trying to pull like a Danish Madsen bolt action rifle? They were just trying to sell guns, or do you think they were actually making it for themselves?
I think they were making them to sell, to be honest, because it's obvious they didn't use them. And weren't they also part of the USSR?
I think they might have been. They were under the USSR influence, like a lot of those countries. I don't know if they were in the Warsaw Pact, though. I can't remember. But they were, a communist country at the time and under the USSR influence. Yeah.
They split in 1948, which is actually when the M48 started to be made. That probably is what's going on. I don't know the history behind the M48, but I would probably take a guess and say that they split from the Soviet ideology and they decided to go a different route, and they made a bunch of these guns. but they never really got into any fighting, and so they just kind of started selling them whenever they needed money.
Yeah, it's funny how many commies how commies love you making guns and selling them.
I
It's
didn't realize there
awfully
was that
free
many.
market.
1.2 million.
Yeah, that's a ton. I guess maybe that's the keeping the prices down here in the U.S. But if you're looking for a Mauser, those are one of the few Mausers, kind of like I said before, that you're going to get. And it's going to be pristine condition. Finish is pretty good on them because it's just pretty brand new. But in my experience, the fit is a little hit or miss on those. Like you'll handle sort of like a brand new one, and it'll just be smooth and it'll work fine and everything. I'll handle one that just kind of feels like the parts don't quite fit perfect together. I don't know what exactly that is. I'm just sort of guessing. Unmotivated, maybe slightly less skilled, factory workers making these guns, or not
Or
sure. But
potentially an arsenal refit where they swap something they shouldn't have.
yeah, maybe. But yeah, so it's a cool way of getting a Mauser, a European Mauser for pretty cheap, and one that's going to be in pretty decent shape.
Well, let's move on to something that's a little bit less good shape. Turkish Mausers.
Oh boy, too bad Sam's not here to talk about Turks.
Yeah, Sam is a big fan of the Turkish Mausers, and Danny and I've shot a Turkish Mauser. Danny, have you ever shot one?
No, I've just handled a bunch.
Well, you've handled a bunch, so you're going to understand this and agree with, I'm sure, with this. But the fit and finish on Turkish Mausers probably originally was really good because they were made by Germany for the most part, and then I think Turkey made some of their own. They were used a lot. They're not going to be in great shape for the most part.
Yeah, those guns are pretty rough. Yeah, that's kind of the opposite case is for the M48. Yeah, those Turkish guns, man, they're going to be rough, but at least they're cheap.
Yeah.
Turkish Mausers are a good way of getting into Mausers on the cheap.
Yeah, because of the overall rough condition and the fact they're from Turkey, they're not have a great reputation, and therefore they don't have a lot of price reflected in their sale.
Yeah, it's a bit because I guess nobody there's not like a huge like Turkish firearms like base here in the U.S. But to do with the Turkish refurb process that they went through in like the 30s, pretty much they went through in various times they went through these like refurbishment. A lot of times they they had these really cool old they're 1893 Mausers that they're really cool. They have a magazine cut off on the side, and they just would go through, they would take off anything like that. They were trying to standardize on all their stuff, so they would remove all the markings, and the arsenal that was doing it would put their marks on it and the year, new wood on it, and then throw it back into the armories or circulation or whatever. So with these Turkish Mausers, you don't get like a huge like variation in them because they were all kind of refurbished at one time or another. So you get guns that are really mix matched, and then a lot of them all have the same exact receiver marking. So the collectability.
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
The collectability is it's a little low on most Turks. Now, when you get into like the unmolested rifles or like original Ottoman rifles that haven't been upgraded or anything, high dollar guns, and those actually do have a pretty good following. And I wouldn't mind getting my hands on like an original Ottoman Mauser that hasn't been messed with at all. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and then but I will say this though, because of all the different various upgrade programs and all the different models that they upgraded, it gets really confusing to figure out which one that you're looking at, and therefore it's confusing for the person selling it. So they might have a rarer variation or a rarer model or a rarer upgrade, and they don't know because it's just so many different times.
Yeah, that's very true. I've seen a rarer one. I forgot what the designation is on it. It's like a 93/33 or something like that, but antique receiver. It was one of the ones that had the magazine cut off and everything, and some of the original markings hadn't been ground off fully. And of course, this person didn't know any of this, that this was a really old, nice one that was then upgraded later on or refurbished later on. It was it was really dirt cheap. It was one of those guns that if it wasn't refurbished, I would have jumped on that in a heartbeat. But still, there it was a really good price, and I saw a couple Turkish Mausers that were just like a phenomenally priced gun. Like these Turkish Mausers in some cases are cheaper than 9130s.
Yeah. And they're still an 8 millimeter Mauser for the most part.
Yeah, so it's kind of like as far as get a cheap gun, your options are still sort of like a 9130. Turkish Mausers might be one to look into. You know, if you don't have a lot of money and you want to get something, and at least the Turk, Mauser that you're looking at might have a really long and neat history to it.
I'm looking at CN Arsenal's website, and they have a quick and dirty guide to Turkish rifles. There are, in just the Mausers, the conversion and update versions alone, there are 10 different models designations.
Yeah, that's pretty confusing for just about anybody that would be looking to buy one. So yeah, that could be a cool gun for people to look into getting into, and more rare and more expensive, but right now they seem to be pretty fairly available and fairly cheap.
Yeah, and in a fairly affordable caliber. Danny, do
Yeah.
you have another
So
one?
another gun.
Well, I have one
Is gonna
more.
go. Okay.
You can go ahead if you have something else.
I was going to talk about Swiss guns. I don't know if I already talked about them a whole lot,
Well,
but
we can talk about Swiss guns, yeah.
so as far as 2019 goes, sort of along the lines of French guns. Like if you're you're wanting to get into this, now is the time to do it. Guns, I think the secret's out. People are buying them. I don't see them very often for sale anymore, and the prices they tend to be pretty high. So I think now the price is starting to reflect the high quality of the rifles, but we're not so far along that they're not way expensive. They're still being imported sometimes. So I don't know if smaller guys like Classic are still getting them in a whole lot, but Edelweiss Arms is still importing them. They sort of trickling in, and so they're a gun that is going up in price. And I think one of the few things that's holding the price from going up really high right now is the fact that they're still being by companies like Edelweiss. I think if you're looking to get one of these Swiss guns, 11 or K11 or K31, I think you're going to want to get one of those in 2019 here before the Swiss stop selling them. Also before the ammo gets too high, because that GP11 ammo, it's already getting really expensive.
Yeah, and if you get into the older Swiss ones, it's not GP11, it's GP90, which is not the same.
Yeah. So if you get if you get an 1889 Swiss, don't just try to put GP11 in it and shoot it. Do say that you can shoot GP11 out of an 1899 in emergency only situations, but if you shoot your 1889 recreationally if you're shooting GP11 through it recreationally, you're gonna damage that gun eventually.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Swiss guns are super high fit and finish. I think that for some reason they just didn't have the following. I think it has to do with the fact that they were never really involved in a war. They're in a weird caliber for the U.S. They're straight pulls, and all of that kind of just weighs into the factor of they don't really have like a niche following. But then the K31, especially at the end of last year, just suddenly exploded in terms of value.
Yeah, that one picked up really fast. I remember, I think it was just less than 2 years ago, I made a top five guns under $500, and the K31 was on that list. Not on that list anymore. It's gone up, like it's definitely over that 500 mark now, and it's only six now, and it's only gonna go up, especially as the stocks run dry of them. And I sort of have a theory on why a lot of these neutral guns, like Swiss guns, why they're not super popular, but now they're kind of getting more popular with just the exposure to the U.S. market. And since Sweden and Switzerland, they weren't involved in one of these wars, kept their guns, so they didn't lose or get involved in a war. And like when Germany lost and Japan lost, millions of their rifles back to the United States. And so everybody knew about them, and everybody's been collecting them and shooting them ever since the end of World War II. Held on to their guns. They used them up until the 60s. I think they used the K31s up until 50s or 60s. Fairly recently then started letting them go and selling them. Not much exposure for a long time on the US market, but I think it's really starting to make an impact, and people are the value in the rifle. And that's one of the things too, is like whatever the rifle is, and then the actual dollar amount, like the value of the rifle, the quality of the rifle, and the dollar amounts, they don't always match up. And with Swiss guns, they definitely don't match up. So the price is only going to go up to sort of match the quality of the gun as people start to appreciate them and collect them more. And when they dry up in Switzerland and stop being imported, then their price is really going to go up. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to mention everybody, just so you know.
Yeah.
How much longer you have to get these guns before the prices go up.
I'm looking at Edelweiss Arms right now, and I'm seeing 6 K11s for $410 a piece.
Yeah. So you definitely, if you can find one for a good price. Now, one of the things that you should look for with K31s and these Swiss guns is the import marks. Going to be matching numbers. It's going to be hard to find one actually that's not matching numbers. Or with Swiss guns is the import marks. So I'm lucky to have a K31 that has no import marks on it whatsoever, which is kind of crazy. I have another one, another Swiss K31 that has a really, that old style one where it's just like one little lightly etched line and they put it like underneath the barrel. Which is also really nice. But these new ones that are coming in, they have, I swear it's getting just like bigger and bigger, like the requirements that they have to etch in. And they etch a billboard into the side of these Swiss receivers, which is really sad because they're so beautiful. And then they have to etch them all up. So when you're looking for these guns, typically the newer imported ones have these gigantic billboard, import marks on them. And if you don't care about that, then you're going to get a good deal. Those guns are going to go for less money, the bigger the import mark. On a nicer one, you're going to want to kind of look around and look for a Swiss gun that has a smaller import mark.
Yeah, and that's something that I don't really have much of a problem with as far as my concern. I know that Will has a big problem with import marks, and he refuses to have one with an import mark. I just don't have that big of an issue, but I understand why people do.
I like which of my K31s to keep, because there's the one that has no import mark and then the one that has the tiny import mark. So obviously I'm going to keep the one with the no import mark. But another thing to look for with these Swiss rifles is the name tags, the butt plates. So if they'll let you wherever you're looking, if you can, unscrew and take the butt plate off and look underneath and see if there's a piece of paper under there with the name on it. That also, I think, increases. If it doesn't directly increase the price of the rifle, it definitely increases to buy it at a fair price. So if you're going to look for a Swiss gun, my advice, if there's one under it, if you can't check yourself, and then look for one with a small import mark.
Yeah, and I don't think you're going to be able to find the K31s for a decent price anymore. I think we're specifically referring to the older models, which still use GP11, but that's like the 1911, the K11, the 1896/11. Those are all going to be fairly reasonably priced, but still same extreme level of quality.
Yeah, pretty much the quality. Now, I've had the stocks off of my 1889, my G11, and both my K31s, and that really, like, the fit and finish and attention to detail is there, for over the whole rifle period that they've had them. You definitely will not be disappointed with your Swiss gun.
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't disappointed with the fit and finish of my K31.
You were just disappointed with its. Isn't that right?
I was disappointed with its action. I just didn't find it exciting to shoot, and then the price of the ammunition kept me from shooting it very often, and then I just never got around to reloading for it. So I had an opportunity to get rid of it, and I got rid of it.
Oh man, these all sound like excuses to me.
I'm very happy with the Vaquero that I got instead.
Yeah, that is a pretty neat gun.
Well, we kind of.
It's definitely a gun that.
Sorry, what?
I was gonna say that's definitely a gun that, like, you're bringing out. People are kind of like, wow, like, what is that? Is that a K98K or what is that?
It is definitely an interesting piece, which fits more with my style, even though the K31 does as well because it's just a straight pull action. Well, Danny, we're kind of low on time here, but what is something you're looking out for in 2019?
All right, so guns that I'm looking out for in 2019 are kind of be the ones that I said already. Mostly, I'm going to be looking out for Japanese guns. Eye on Nambu pistols, especially because of how the prices have been going up. So if I can find one for the price that they were selling for like a year or two ago, I would probably get that. Looking for like a Type 99 with all the accoutrement. That would be really nice. Get one with the mum and the monopod and everything. I think that's what I'm to really be looking for. That and well, right now I guess my thing is Krags. I guess I'm looking to get one of each Krag.
Pretty fun, actually. I have the US one, and so do you. I think you actually bought it because you shot mine.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have bought it if I hadn't have shot yours first, man. Yeah.
But I think something that I would be looking for right now is actually an Ishapur 2A1 or a 2A, which is the Indian homemade version of the SMLE, but it's redone in 7.62 by 51. And I think I could argue that is the best version of the SMLE.
Yeah, I think pretty much with the magazine improvements, reliability improvement
Well, the
with
elimination of
SM62.
a rimmed cartridge as well.
Yeah. So I think it's a great caliber, and then it's gonna fix some of the feeding issues of the infield. So
I've actually
that
never heard a bad thing about them, to be honest.
yeah, they're not super collectible. I find them every now and then. I don't think Indian guns are looked at as being very like high quality, and I think it's because they tend to look a little rough when you find them because they were used. Guys, they carried them around, they used them, even if they weren't used in like a war or fighting. There's a cop or something carried that thing around, and it got a lot of use. So they're either used up or they're like painted black.
Yeah.
But looks aside, I think you have a pretty solid gun there.
Totally agree.
Other than the 2A1, what else are you going to be looking for in 2019?
I don't really have much else I look for. I just kind of go with the flow and see what comes my way and what I'm able to find. My area doesn't have big on Milsurp, so it's just kind of not really something I go out and look for. I also don't have a lot of money to throw around, so it's not something that I go out and look for stuff. But if something comes up at a good price or a good deal, then that's what you do.
Yeah, that is pretty much what I do. I think too. Like I look if it's a good price, I think I'll buy it. Just about if it's a good price. Yeah, it's hard not to buy them. If it's a Milsurp, you can't really lose money on it. It's gonna go up in value. And then if it's your thing, then that's a really immeasurable quantity there. The happiness you'll get from it.
Exactly.
Your Krag, I think, made me buy this one.
The look of surprise, and I wish we had tried filming it, but it was at a public range, and the footage is useless. The look on Danny's face, the surprise when he fired it and then cycled the action and then checked to make sure it actually picked up a round because it's so smooth he didn't realize it had picked up a round, was one
ridiculous.
of the funniest things I've ever seen.
It's so ridiculous, man. Like I'm pretty sure afterwards, not on the first round, but like on the second or third, I open gun. So you have that like force that you overcome, when you cock it. And but I was able to lift the bolt and cock it with my pinky. Tackle that gun with just your pinky. It's so smooth, much force at all. And when you chamber that round, it does, because of the way the magazine works, it doesn't feel like you're stripping around off the magazine and it's going up into the chamber like smooth, because really it's just like loading a round like on a single loader or something. Like the round just goes in there and it's just, there's no resistance, there's no, like, it doesn't feel like you feel like you messed up and just close the bolt on an empty chamber. But
yeah, and it's one of those, it was amazing to me before I shot one that we accepted that in the United States as a military firearm without doing field testing. But after shooting it in a controlled environment, like at the range, I totally understand. At the range, this is like the best thing ever. It's so smooth, it's accurate, it's easy to handle, it's well balanced. You get out in the field and that magazine is just awful, and it's just not going to work. It's in a rimmed cartridge. It's just not, it wasn't a good choice for a war weapon, but oh man, is this like a sniper's or a range weapon's dream. It's just great.
Yeah, it's a great target rifle, man. The US loves adopting target rifles, and it was a really nice one. And this, the Swedes almost adopted the the Krag instead, because Norway was part of Sweden at the time, so it was like a fairly domestic design. And one of the things written in the trials that they tried to do stopped the Krag was one of these guys, when he was working the action on the Mauser, he would like deliberately like go like kind of pretend as if it was really hard to work the Mauser action, especially right after shooting the Krag. And that was the Krag really spoiled everybody in that trials was just how smooth and easy the bolt is.
Yeah, the magazine system is amazing in that regard, but at the same time, I cannot imagine trying to load that magazine under duress.
Oh yeah, that would be pretty nuts. I don't the what was that one, the one hill or whatever the US fought, the
San
Spanish,
Juan Hill.
where like there was like how many bazillion rounds of 30-40 laying on the ground because people were dropping them instead of getting them in their guns.
Yeah, it was pretty noticeable after that battle, after that engagement, that we had made a wrong decision.
Yeah. However, I think I heard I need to try this. I don't have any 30-40 though, but I heard that the Swiss like little cardboard loader with the Krags, and guys, they use the Krag rifles actually in shooting competitions, and they use a clip to load the rifle. So there is a way.
I've seen them use the Swiss K31 Charger clips before.
Yeah, I need to try that. I need some 30-40 first, but I want to try that and like make a video about it.
I think Norway also made a speed loader for like target competitions, but I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, I wonder if the Norwegians or the Danes had a clip for their Krags.
I don't think it was used for military use, but I think it was for like competition shooting.
Yeah. Hmm.
Because competition shooting, for the people that don't know, is really big in Europe.
Yeah, or at least it used to be. It's still pretty big in some of the countries, but
yeah, it was a really big deal for competition shooting, probably up until World War II, essentially. All right, well.
Yeah, well, we get a little bit off topic with the Krag here.
Yeah,
but,
whatever. We get that. We get that way. I mean, if you can find a Krag for a good price, I would suggest getting one of those as well.
Oh yeah, like pretty much. I think if you can find any Krag rifle, as long as it's not like sporterized, and you got to be careful with fake Krag carbines. But if you can find a Krag for under $600, man.
Yeah, like Danny did for $488.
What?
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's going to be it for today. I don't think we have enough time to go into anything else, but I think it's been really informative. I think people are going to be able to use this and talk about and going out and with a different perspective on what to look for.
Yeah. I hope everyone got something out of this besides our random chit chat. But I mean, guns, man. It's easy to get off topic because it's such a broad, thing. But I love talking about guns, and I hope that everyone, enjoys listening to us.
Yeah, and I think the key takeaway for me, and this is something that took me a while to learn this too, is that the key takeaway I think from this whole conversation is if you find a good deal on something, don't let it go. It doesn't matter if it's on your quote unquote list. Buy it. Yeah,
you can always resell it, but it'll eat at your soul if you miss out on something that's really cool or unique.
Exactly, and that's the key. That's the key thing is that if you're not going to want to keep it, but it's an amazing deal, then sell it. You can easily sell something that is like a good deal, like Danny's Krag. I'm sure he could probably make some money off of that if he ever wanted to sell it. It's easy to do that in the Milsurp community because you're always going to find the person that's like, I've been looking for that for forever, and you're going to offer it to me for like $200 or $300 below what the normal asking price is right now. Perfect. They'll be thanking you for it.
Yeah, that's true. And it's cool. It's an antique. It's a fine one. So
mine is not. Mine is 1903, I believe, which is kind of neat because it was the same year as the Springfield 1903. But anyway.
Yeah, that is pretty neat.
All right. Well, that was it for today. I hope everybody had a good time, and then we'll catch you again next time.
Talk to you later, guys.
All right. Bye.